Are you buying shares this morning of these beleaguered banks?
We own a lot, as you know already, of these beleaguered banks. And again, the reason why we own them is because this is where we're finding value. You mentioned Credit Suisse as a perfect example. In the last 3.5 years, they've kind of really transformed themselves to an institution that was really dependent on the investment bank for its earnings and earnings growth, and everyone kind of ignored the private bank. And restructuring or a turnaround was kind of put in place to put less reliance on the more unreliable earnings from the investment bank, and focus. And this has mainly been done, and the market has ignored it. And we think there's really strong earnings power coming from Credit Suisse and some of these other banks. You had BNP up there, same thing.
Right. Francine, jump in here with your special relationship with Zurich, Switzerland. I'm sure you've got some insight for Mr. Herro and Mr. Oderman on Credit Suisse.
Yeah, David, no, I mean, it was interesting. I was going to ask you actually the upside for Credit Suisse, but do you worry about some of the compliance issues at Julius Baer? Would that make, is there anything in Switzerland that would actually make you reassess some of your investments?
Well, we're always looking at what new information may come up. The compliance issue, Julius Baer basically made it through. They've paid their fine. They're now no longer on the DOJ list. Most of the compliance issues with these Swiss banks, not all, of course, there's all these little things here and there, are behind them. And if you look at their capital positions today, and if you look at the capital buffers today, and the amount of capital generation today, it is able to absorb any little tiny hits and still grow their business and still give money back to the owners. And I think this is kind of what the market's missing, is the cash flow streams are a lot more stable today, given how the businesses have been repositioned versus 3, 4, 5 years
But so
ago.
If you look at your investments in banks, so you have Lloyds here in the UK, you have Intesa in Italy, you have a couple of the Swiss banks. Are you happy with that portfolio? Would you add, we're seeing so much political turmoil in Italy, would you add to, for example, your holding in Intesa or any other Italian bank?
Well, I think it would be hard for another financial to enter the. We also own Allianz, by the way. It would be hard for another financial
Otherwise it'd be
to enter
awkward.
the portfolio. We have plenty of exposure to the European financial sector. Thank you. However, our basic mechanism is to price a business, and if price moves away from the valuation, we add, and if it gets closer to valuation, we subtract. So as of right now, I think we're very happy with the way we're positioned, which is extremely overweight in European financials, but I don't think we really need any more. Now, if they were to weaken, that's a different story. If they were to strengthen, that's a different story. That's the mechanism which we position.